Thank you for watching Westferry Times. Welcome, everyone, to our deep dive today.
Great to be here.
We've got a really interesting set of materials you've sent over this week. Everything from, government reports looking at AI, how it's being introduced into public services,
hmm
to academic papers on the practical side, and some fascinating news pieces showing the ups and downs.
Yeah, it's a really mixed bag covering a lot of ground.
It is. And the big question that sort of jumps out from all this, the one we really want to tackle is, can AI actually fix, broken governance?
It's the question on a lot of people's minds, isn't it? Especially
Yeah.
now, technology's everywhere in our lives, but we still see these, persistent problems in our public institutions.
Absolutely. You see the headlines all the time, backlog, services struggling, public trust maybe wavering a bit. So it makes sense. People look towards AI thinking maybe this is the fix, the tech solution.
And the sources you sent certainly point to that potential. They highlight ways AI could genuinely speed things up, make things more effective.
So to help us really get into this, to understand what your sources are telling us about the real potential, but also the pitfalls, we're joined today by Dr. Nathan Clark.
Hello.
Dr. Clark is an AI policy advisor, has experience inside government, and is really a key voice on the ethics and practicalities of digital tech. Welcome.
Thank you. Looking forward to digging into these sources.
Great. So our mission today is to use these materials you've provided as our map, really, to see how AI is being used in government right now, where it seems promising, and where the tricky parts are.
Sounds good.
Okay, so let's set the scene first. When we talk about AI in Whitehall, drawing from that government report you shared, what does that actually look like day to day? Is it robots wandering the halls?
Well, not quite like that. Based on these documents, it's much more about using algorithms, smart data analysis, machine learning, things like that, to make services run smoother.
Smoother how?
Well, the report gives examples like using AI to process benefit claims faster by pulling out the key info automatically, or helping analyze medical scans that came up in a news piece too.
Right, like X-rays or MRIs.
Exactly. Flagging things for doctors.
Mm.
Also, spotting odd patterns in financial data for fraud detection, and even trying to model the effects of new policies before they happen.
So it's more about tools to help humans do their jobs better, maybe faster, rather than replacing them entirely.
That seems to be the main idea coming through in your sources, yes. And it's important to remember, as a few articles noted, AI is already being used in the civil service,
Mm.
oft quietly behind the scenes.
Okay.
So the real questions, the ones your materials raise, are about how far this goes, the scale of it, and what the real-world impact will be. What are the trade-offs?
Right. Which brings us nicely to the pro argument. What are the main benefits your sources are highlighting for using AI in government?
Efficiency is definitely a big one, comes up again and again in your articles. AI systems, as the academic paper explains, can just crunch through huge amounts of data so much faster than people can.
Mm-hmm.
And that could mean, quicker answers for people applying for things, faster decisions, maybe faster help in emergencies. The government report you sent also talks about potential savings for the taxpayer because of this.
Okay, efficiency, cost savings, those are pretty clear benefits. What else did the sources suggest?
Transparency is an interesting one they bring up. Now, one of the papers does talk about the black box problem, not always knowing how AI reaches a decision.
Right, I've heard that term.
But the general feeling in your materials seems to be that putting AI in often forces the government to digitize old systems, systems that weren't very transparent to begin with.
Ah, okay. So the process of bringing in AI makes things clearer?
Potentially, yes, if it's done right. Moving to digital can make things easier to track, to audit. And it might reduce the impact of individual human bias that could creep into the old manual ways of doing things.
Just the thought of digitizing some of those clunky old government systems, yeah, that feels like a win in itself, based on personal experience sometimes.
Absolutely.
Can you give us a really concrete example, maybe from one of the news stories, of how AI might actually change an interaction for an ordinary person?
Yeah, one article mentioned a trial using a quite sophisticated chatbot for handling questions about benefits.
Okay.
So instead of waiting on hold, trying to call during office hours, someone could say, ask this AI bot questions at 2 a.m., get instant answers to common queries, figure out the next steps.
Right, like an FAQ, but interactive and available anytime.
Exactly. That's a direct example from your sources showing how AI could potentially make public services feel more, available and responsive.
So these benefits aren't just theoretical. Your sources show they're starting to happen. Where else is AI actually being used right now in the public sector based on those materials?
Your sources give some solid examples. HMRC, the tax authority, is using machine learning, according to one report, to spot patterns suggesting tax fraud. Helps them focus their investigations.
Makes sense.
Then, as we mentioned, the NHS, several articles talk about AI helping read scans, x-rays, MRIs, flagging things for doctors, potentially catching diseases earlier.
Which could be huge for patients.
Definitely. And then at the local level, some councils are trying out predictive analytics, using data to try and spot, say, families or individuals who might be vulnerable and could need support before a crisis hits.
Okay, that predictive analytics one sounds powerful, but maybe also raises some questions, like predicting who might need social services intervention.
Absolutely, and that's where your sources immediately pivot to the ethical side, the complexities. That specific example predicting child neglect risk, which was touched upon, raises huge ethical flags about automating human judgment in such sensitive areas.
Yeah, you can see why. So let's get into those ethical minefields. What are the big concerns your sources flag up?
Bias is a major one, a really major one. The academic paper, particularly, explains that AI learns from the data it's trained on.
Right.
And if that data reflects existing biases in society, maybe in policing data or housing allocation data, the AI can actually learn and even amplify those biases. It's not neutral.
So garbage in, garbage out, essentially. But potentially worse because it scales it up.
Kind of, yeah. Or biased data in, biased decisions out, potentially affecting whole groups of people unfairly. It's a serious risk highlighted in your materials.
Okay, bias. What else?
Accountability. Big question. If an AI system denies your benefit claim or flags you for some reason, who do you appeal to? What happens if the human caseworker, maybe the person you talk to, doesn't actually have the power to override the algorithm's decision? That lack of recourse is a real worry mentioned in the sources.
The computer says no problem, but with real consequences.
Exactly. And then there's privacy. Governments using AI often means collecting and analyzing vast amounts of personal data. Where are the lines drawn? How is that data stored, protected, used? What inferences are being made about us? Your sources raise these as critical ethical questions. Yeah, these are deep issues. It links into public trust, doesn't it? How do people feel about AI being used by the government? What do your sources say about that? It's complicated, according to the articles. People generally like the idea of smoother, faster digital services. We want that convenience.
Sure.
But there's also fear. Fear of this faceless bureaucracy, decisions made by machines we don't understand. Some sources mention the backlash against things like predictive policing trials or those exam algorithm controversies we saw a while back.
Right. When algorithms seemed to unfairly disadvantage certain students, people reacted strongly.
They did. And it underlines a key point from your sources.
Yep.
It's not just what AI you introduce, it's how you do it. You need transparency. People need to understand roughly how it works. They need to consent. There need to be safeguards. Otherwise, you risk losing public acceptance entirely.
So the process matters just as much as the tech itself, which brings us back again to the main question. Can AI fix broken governance? You've got efficiency gains on one side, but these deep ethical issues and trust deficits on the other. What's the verdict from these materials?
Well, the sources seem to differentiate between broken, meaning inefficient, slow, maybe using outdated tech.
Right, the operational stuff.
Yes, and broken meaning deeper problems like systemic inequality or maybe a lack of democratic accountability.
Okay.
And the consensus from your materials seems to be AI can help with the first kind of broken. It can streamline processes, update systems, handle data better, but it's not a fix for the second kind.
So it won't solve inequality or make government more democratic on its own?
No. In fact, your sources warn that AI is basically a tool that amplifies whatever system it's put into. If the underlying governance is fair and just, AI might make it more efficiently fair and just. But if the governance is flawed or unjust,
AI could just make it faster and more efficiently unjust.
that's the risk highlighted, yes.
Right.
It's not a solution for fundamental policy or societal problems.
That's a really crucial distinction. Now, thinking about Whitehall itself, the civil service culture, how is it reacting to this digital shift based on your readings and maybe your own insights?
Again, your sources paint a mixed picture. You definitely see pockets of innovation, real enthusiasm for digital tools in some areas. The pilot schemes mentioned in the articles, the government's own reports show there's momentum, but you also see resistance. Or perhaps caution. There's a large, complex institution. There's often a natural risk aversion. People worry about jobs potentially changing or disappearing due to automation.
Understand.
There's also the challenge of digital skills. Not everyone across the board feels confident with this tech yet. And sometimes the legal or regulatory landscape is a bit unclear, which can make departments hesitant.
So this internal culture, this mix of enthusiasm and hesitation, does that slow things down? The pace of transformation?
Oh, almost certainly. Implementing this kind of change across government is a huge task. Your sources suggest it really needs strong leadership, clear vision from the top, and investment in training and upskilling people. You need digital champion, as they're sometimes called, empowered to drive change. Without that, progress can be patchy.
Right. So looking ahead then, based on the recommendations or ideas floating around in your source materials, what would a sensible roadmap look like for using AI responsibly in government?
Several key things come through. Firstly, clear ethical rules, like a framework, maybe even an AI Bill of Rights for public services, setting out principles.
Okay, clear guidelines.
Secondly, transparency. The academic paper pushes for things like open source algorithms where possible, so experts can actually see how they work. Makes auditing easier.
Let people look under the hood.
Exactly. And thirdly, pretty much universally across your sources, is the idea of human-in-the-loop design. AI should support human judgment, not replace it entirely, especially for decisions that really impact people's lives. The human needs to have the final say, or at least be able to intervene.
So AI as a co-pilot, not the pilot.
That's a good way to put it, yes.
Yeah.
Especially in critical areas.
And what about the lawmakers? Parliament, regulators? Your sources seem to suggest they might be playing catch-up.
Yeah, there's a definite sense in the materials that the technology is moving faster than the regulation. There's an urgent need, suggested by some sources, for Parliament and wider society to have a serious conversation about this. What are our red lines? How do we ensure accountability? Almost like needing a digital constitution conversation for the AI age.
A digital constitution. That's a powerful idea. Okay, so if we had to boil it all down, based on everything in these varied sources you sent us, what's the single main takeaway for you about AI in governance?
I think the core message is that AI in government is really about creating smarter systems, systems that can handle complexity and data better. But it's not about replacing the need for wise human direction.
So smarter systems still need smart and ethical people guiding them.
Precisely. The technology offers potential, but realizing that potential positively depends entirely on the choices we make about how we design it, deploy it, and oversee it. Human wisdom remains key.
Dr. Nathan Clark, that was incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for walking us through the nuances in these sources today.
That was my pleasure. A really important topic.
It really is. And to you, our listener, we hope this deep dive, guided by your materials, has helped clarify both the potential and the very real challenges of using AI and how we're governed. It's definitely a conversation that's not going away. Your curiosity and, frankly, your skepticism about how these powerful tools are used are so important. Thank you for watching Westferry Times. Do like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, stay engaged.
Absolutely. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and perhaps most importantly now, stay digitally literate. Goodbye.